Travis Wayne Goodsell. There's information that I've been giving you guys about Lorenzo Snow and the windows of heaven, that it's a fraud. Never happened. It was creation by BYU, and when people actually did the research, they found that there was no such talk, and the results of the particular year mentioned in the video did result in a flooding that destroyed the crops as well as the heat wave that did exist that year, the drought that caused the crops failure. So the question then comes, when did the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints establish tithing as a protection racket for worthiness to be Mormon, to do temple work, to be a member of the church? It's asked in our bishops and stake presidents' interviews for the temple, for entrance into the church. It's a requirement. It is not a donation. Remember? James Huntsman blew it. By calling it donation, he's going to lose his case. The church may settle and say, oh, fine, here's your $5 million. But, I mean, seriously? Dude, the guy, you had hit the church on RICO. You had the power to obtain lawyers, and you blew it. God. And so, I found yesterday the answer to when it began. And of course, it's Brigham Young. Immediately after the death of Joseph Smith, Brigham Young rose up to try to take over. And there was a conference in which Sidney Rigdon tried to convince some Mormons to keep the church going, and he would be the overseer of it. But Brigham Young had already established himself with his 12, having recruited the Danites from the Scottish Rites Freemasons, who were the Illuminati infiltrators into America to destroy America. So that's why we had a death to America in Brigham Young's endowment, as Brigham Young is the one who created the endowment. Not Joseph Smith, Brigham Young. Wilford Woodruff, in his final testimony, he was utilizing a brand new audio device, and he botched the first run. And so the second run, they had him read his final testimony. And in that final testimony was revealed that Joseph Smith's temple rituals consisted only of washings and anointings by the laying on of hands. And that exposes a whole new understanding of the church and the transition to Brigham Young. This needs to be understood in the terms of establishing the church and transitioning into a crime family, a crime organization. The American crime organization was not developed until the late 1800s with the Italian mafia, as they had a group of families that controlled different cities across the nation. But it was not until 1931 where Lucky, as his nickname was, organized what has become known as the Godfather, the boss of bosses. And that structure is patterned after the church's criminal organization. You have the boss, who is the president of the church. The Godfather has a counselor. Church has two, sometimes more, depending on the president. Throughout the Brigham Young situation, Joseph Smith even had different counselors, but his organization was not structured this way. It was a completely different organization than what Brigham Young had to change it into to legitimize himself as the successor to the church. That's why he did it. You always look for beneficiaries. You have to look for who's making the claim, why they're making the claim. Brigham Young's claim was that he had the keys of the kingdom from Peter, James, and John, and therefore he's supposed to succeed. And he produced two documents, one with his 12, one with the Council of 50, which, again, Joseph Smith was not a part of. It was Brigham Young's organization. It was a counter-government to overthrow America. It was created while Joseph Smith was running for president. If it were to be found out that Joseph Smith had a Council of 50 to overthrow the government, yeah, he would have. Yeah. And so, Joseph Smith was again being betrayed by Brigham Young. Again. I've gone over the other betrayals. Brigham Young made false accusations of Joseph all the time. And the other day, I exposed that Brigham Young took credit for polygamy. Even though he lied about when it began, Brigham Young purposely had tried to set it up to frame Joseph Smith for establishing it in 1843, claiming that he had told Joseph in 1841. It was already practiced in the church before this. Heber C. Kimball had a second wife, unbeknownst to Joseph and the rest of the regular church members. He had her in 1829, before he even became a Mormon. And it was Brigham Young who usurped the authority of seer to perform the sealings, as it was the keys of Elijah, which only Joseph had. Hiram had seer, but not the keys of Elijah. He was only patriarch. Joseph's keys for the presidency was that of Moses. And so Brigham Young did away with all that Egyptian stuff and Moses stuff, which is all Jewish. As Brigham Young was Methodist, he's the one who turned Joseph Smith into a history as a result. And so no more Egyptian stuff. It was now Gospels, historical Jesus as a history, just as Constantine created Jesus as a history in the Nicene Creed. And so with the death murder, assassination, an inside job, because Willard Richards and John Taylor were in Brigham Young's 12. In the video I did yesterday or the day before about Brigham Young confesses to having laughed in Joseph's face all the time about how stupid Joseph Smith was. So we can't claim that Brigham Young was the true successor. It fails. Now, I'm Mormon, born and raised, and as you can see, it doesn't seem to faze me. I want Joseph Smith's church. I want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of a crime organization. But the manner in which tithing became a protection racket was with the creation of the endowment ceremony with the garden and creation rooms. Brigham Young was requiring members of the church to be fully tithed, as that was the economy that he was utilizing. Now, I'm still trying to figure it out because there's some problems. The Section 119 wasn't released until 1844 in Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants. And it's dated to July of 1838. Now, that just happens to be the time frame when Joseph Smith was not in jail, because Brigham Young and his Danites kept committing crimes for which Joseph Smith was being falsely accused of. And so it should be Brigham and his Danites that are getting arrested, and instead Joseph Smith is taking the fall for them. This is what happens when you have a coup attempt within the church. Brigham Young and his Danites attempted to overthrow the church in 1838, but failed. Joseph Smith eventually got out of jail again, and even though Brigham Young had taken over the presidency of the 12, kicking out Thomas B. Marsh, having him excommunicated, which was not his authority either. So Brigham Young constantly claimed authority he did not have. That was his push the whole time in the church. And so it wasn't until murdering Joseph Smith, paying for the murder with the Warsaw Lodge group, that became what's known as the mob. And if you're unfamiliar with protection rackets, with tithing, it's a crime. And criminal organizations, they use a front business, sanitation for the Sopranos, for example. He runs a legitimate sanitation business. The problem is that when it comes time for the monthly payment of the sanitation service, the goons who collect the money are asking for additional insurance for protection, thus a protection racket. And there's no guarantee of a return on the investment. It's just, hey, you're in our territory, pay up, otherwise you're going to need insurance. This was before insurance. And likewise, our current insurance and the various methods are all under the same thing. There's no guarantee of a return on our investment when we need the money that we've been paying in for damages done to our life, our property, our homes, our cars, etc., whatever we have insurance in. Every insurance company wants to cause problems and not give. They resist, and they have investigators to make sure that you're not cheating them because they just don't want to give the money. And that's what the original protection racket was about. But again, the church was already ahead of all of this, as Brigham Young established it immediately in 1844 with the Nauvoo Temple. You had to be a full tithe payer in order to access the rituals of the endowment ceremony portion that he created. And he wanted to have the women completely naked in the garden scene. And yes, I said women, because remember, he's a polygamist. He said that Adam was a polygamist. And there is Journal of Discourses talks in which they did know about Lilith. So it's not unreasonable, as the Jews also recognized that Adam had Lilith first as his first wife, and then she refused to cooperate, which I've gone over as an Egyptian-based story. And then Eve was given. The only problem is that Eve has no historical connection to anything. She just all of a sudden is created in the Bible text after in the post-captivity during the time period I talked about. But yeah, Brigham Young had underground implemented polygamy in full force now. No longer was it behind Joseph Smith's back, as I did the video about Bennett, who was excommunicated for the practicing of adultery, which was not quite polygamy. He didn't actually get sealed to these women. He was just having sex with the women, claiming that as a medical doctor, he had a substance to give them to not have a baby. It was an abortion thing. And so women were actually falling for this. That's still troubling that Mormon women would so easily have sex with other men. And it's kind of disturbing. As a man who's been in 2 failed marriages, it's disturbing. No guy wants to be a sucker and a loser to a woman who can't be faithful. But Brigham Young took it to a whole new level as he, in 1844 had them secretly sealed to Joseph or to him and his Danites and the 12, so that they would go to Salt Lake, in the Salt Lake Valley. And then it was a common practice back then that when Brigham Young gave an order, everybody else who followed him created stories to support Brigham Young. And that's also disturbing. So polygamy, for example, Brigham Young claimed it. After 1852, when he announced it for the public, all of a sudden everybody starts writing in their journal, yeah, Joseph Smith had sex with me, I had a baby, sorry honey. DNA confirms it's not Joseph's, but and then you have others who start writing about, oh yeah, Joseph told me about an angel with a sword, and told Joseph to practice polygamy openly, immediately, otherwise he's going to be smitten. Well, how many years from 1832 until 1844 is that? That's quite a long time to wait for immediate. And so, the more I do my research into Brigham Young and come across things that originated with Brigham Young, like this tithing. I'd originally believed growing up in the Mormon church, oh, windows of heaven, oh, Lorenzo Snow, okay, he started the protection racket. No, he didn't. And so, if there were videos in which you assumed that it was Lorenzo Snow, I'm making a correction here, as I've now found the origin. I already knew that the windows of heaven was a fraud, and hopefully you guys had understood that the protection racket concept was a different situation then. And it's just a situation that I had not yet found out until yesterday. Or actually, yesterday. And I did more research this morning before this video, as it's now time for me to go running. But I have another video planned, as we are coming up on Wednesday. Tomorrow is Wednesday. All of you who follow me regularly know what that means, and the YouTube employee knows what that means and will be on high alert to shut down my video to silence me, because the prophets are watching my videos, as I did that video, because Nelson responded yet again to my videos as he enforced the organization, the crime organization. It was created by Brigham Young. It was not Joseph Smith's organization for succession. 107:22, read it. Use your English grammar and separate from the current tradition. It's not the same. Anybody can understand it's not the same. Why did Brigham Young claim what he's claiming that has continued to Russell M. Nelson when it's not the same? We do not vote. This is a loyalty oath. It's not a vote. And yet they still pull off the scam. They tell us that we are voting as members of the church when it's supposed to be only the Melchizedek priesthood who actually casts an actual vote. Instead, the church says, oh, you're supporting us. It's a vote of support. It's a crime organization loyalty oath. Just like we read from our Mormon scriptures. Master Mahan, they made oaths and covenants not to divulge the master plan of murder to get gain. And so, the organization of the crime family was originated with the church, with Brigham Young. As he made it the first presidency, is now the boss of bosses. They have counselors, and then the president of the Quorum of the 12 becomes the successor. And that was established due to Brigham Young's Adam God theory, as Orson Hyde was in vocal opposition to Brigham Young. And so he would get up in his turn for conference after Brigham Young had announced it in 1852 with polygamy, and come out and just defy him to the public, to Mormons in conference. And this would go on year after year, the two of them duking it out in conference. And even private meetings between Brigham and Orson, they'd tell each other off. And so because of this, Brigham Young, right before he died, reorganized the 12. Instead of the manner in which Joseph Smith had established it, he then changed it so that when you were put into the 12 is your ranking. And the highest rank is the president of the 12, and since Orson Hyde was among those who got excommunicated in 1838, but was then brought back in with Joseph Smith returning from jail, Brigham Young justified placing Orson Hyde further back down the list. And so John Taylor, ta-da, as he was the one who murdered Hiram Smith with my third great-grandfather's single-shot pistol, and whom Joseph Smith shot back at, seeing that his brother had been murdered by him. And so the tithing became the means of collecting money from the members of the church. And to enforce it, you can't be a faithful Mormon without paying a full tithe. And so, yeah, the United Order became a thing from Brigham Young, who was trying a different economic approach, and they failed. There were some sort of successes, but they failed. They were slavery operations. There's the story of the pants that was made, and it was denied because it wasn't a communal pants. And it's just no. He was a horrible businessman. He went into debt multiple times before the Edmunds-Tucker Act, shutting them down as a criminal organization with polygamy, mainly. But that's why the United States had to shut them down. It was this tithing with polygamy and murder. And it was just, it's a crime organization. And Nelson's trying to restore it. And so, the president of the 12 is now the underboss, and the apostles are the lieutenants, and then the soldiers are the rest of the Melchizedek priesthood, the 70 and presiding bishopric and other Melchizedek priesthood holders, high priests, elders, and such. So yeah, I was a soldier for the church. This is what the YouTube employee is. This is why if you do something criminal as a Mormon, thinking you're defending the church, RICO can take down the whole church because of the RICO Act that was created. And Mormons do not understand this, as the YouTube employee thinks it's okay to attack me, shut down my videos, keep you from watching, keep 11 as the max. So I tried warning you when I was suing the church. The church even came out with a letter to all bishops and stake presidents, don't do this. We're being sued right now by Travis, and you're going to get us in trouble. And the thing is that my whole lawsuits were denied. It was wrongfully denied They were civil cases. You can't, as a judge, deny a civil case and claim that a person, the case is dismissed with prejudice, which means I can't file again. I can file again. It's civil. Criminal cases have the double jeopardy where you can't sue again with the same accusation. But civil, yeah, I can sue again. You know, that's how wrong these judges were against me. And the church council to say, hey, we want it dismissed with prejudice, yeah, they were in the wrong. Again, it's a criminal organization. They don't care about the law. They want me silenced. They want me gone. They ordered my death during the lawsuits. They'd already ordered and paid for my death for the first lawsuit, which I was filing for. And they're just not God's church. I mean, do you not understand this? God is not a mafia boss. Even though I did include the picture of the bling Jesus who's got a gun saying, I'm going to have to let God prevail. Because that definition of Israel is a white supremacist term. Dear God, Nelson. It's like he doesn't care about any of you. And you guys just give him blind loyalty. It's sickening. Oh, I'm now entering into my running time, so yeah. Understand I have a video coming up for Wednesday, which involves some further research to find out who was in the 12 and who was the counselors in the first presidency during this time period. But you'll remember there was a woman who John DeLynn interviewed, Shannon Caldwell Montez. She did a thesis paper on the 1922 secret intellectuals meeting of the church intellectuals. They gathered for a secret meeting in 1922, and she did not do a thorough job. As much as it's nice that Mormons do individual research on one topic, as I've shown you with just tithing, there's a broader picture in which it falls in. And so, yes, she missed out on the bigger picture of what's going on. Because the church reincorporated, after the Edmunds-Tucker Act disincorporated the church. The church is the actual corporation of the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's its official title. You know, the religion front is just the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And that occurred in 1923, the year after. And so, yes, the church needed to handle what the intellectuals were figuring out. And so they did. In 1923, that's when they implemented it. And all hell broke loose. As I'll go over that for you. But you need to understand that in the context of this video and the context of all my other videos, specifically about church history. As I've shown you over and over and over and over and over again, the church history is not real history. No first vision, no Moroni, which was actually Nephi, no brass plates, no Book of Mormon, no historical Jesus, because no first vision. I am an abomination in my own sight. What do you think he was talking about with creeds? Nicene Council Creed. Jesus is now historical. Constantine created Jesus as a historical person, called him by a brand new Greek word that Constantine created, homoousios. And then went around and said, this is the historical sites of the historical Jesus I created, and called him homoousios. And so, yes, Joseph Smith used those, knowing full well they're not real, but coded them. And Brigham Young wanted nothing to do with any of that, because that's too Jewish. There's too much York Knights Templar coding, hint, hint, New Israelite Jewish mysticism coding, hint, hint, if you've not seen those other videos. So, alrighty, time to shut up on my face with an Italian accent.